So, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies and special guests, a warm welcome to this session about airlines, airports and air traffic control. When we talk of this seamless skies, the ability to fly freely across the world, what is your view on the situation?
Well, perhaps the first point is why is it important? Why is it important that we have seamless skies? I mean, I think we all know that air transport carries about a third of international trade by value. It carries the majority of international tourists, but it goes beyond that. The OECD itself has got a big program on global value chains, because a developing country getting on a value chain is a key mechanism for economic development. And rapid air transport links are the reason why Apple and Dell have got globalized value chains.
Clearly, when it comes to the global shift in the economy, it clearly affects global transportation system, and I think in particular aviation. For us in Europe, it means that we're no longer holding the kind of primary position we used to hold, because the Asian market is becoming the prime aviation market in the world. At the same time, we see traffic developing differently because South-South trade is increasing very much. Trade between Africa, Latin America, Asia, that creates new needs in terms of air transportation system, routes that didn't exist before, which means that before, to go from India to Latin America or to Africa, you had to go through Europe. So this development is really challenging the global hub positioning.
Tori mentioned the hard work going on around trying to harmonise rules between countries, and this is just one small part of it. I actually don't believe that's possible. I just think it's a goal that sounds great, but is probably unrealistic. And the reason I say that is because I think while some harmonisation or standardisation is important, to force every country to adopt exactly the same standards ignores the realities of each country's specific needs.
Well, I think that there can be a lot more unification than there is, but I accept that different countries are going to have different requirements. The security issues are different in each country.
I think the answer has to be something along the lines of mutual recognition. So rather than seeking to have every country have exactly the same standards for everything, you set a baseline set of standards, but then look for mutual recognition of different systems. And I'm particularly picking up on security, and you mentioned security as part of the challenge here. We, and I'm sure Australia and many other countries in the world, have had to deal with the rule changes that the TSA have put in place. Now, we're a taker in that. We don't set that change, but we've got to instantly respond to it. But what might be simpler is to make sure that different countries recognise each other's standards, and therefore that will ease the flow and not force that generic standard to markets where it doesn't always work.
We've talked about a lot of measures that needs to be done, like the air traffic control system and expanding airports and a lot of other things. And then what comes to mind is always the cost. Who's going to pay for all this? Where are we going to get the money? It's a good question, yeah?
All the investment for the infrastructure require the multiple stakeholders' investment. Airline has to also invest. Also that air navigation service provider also has to invest. Airport also has to invest. And then these are all interlinked. Without investment by airlines, air navigation service provider investment is no value. So all interconnected. Then the problem is airlines are maybe waiting for air navigation service providers' investment. And maybe air navigation service providers waiting for the investment by airports. But we need to design something to break this vicious circle. This is the most important. And then finally, some part of the cost, of course, passing through, I think, to the end users.
So enjoy your last evening here at ITF and have a safe journey home tomorrow, sometimes whenever you go home. Thank you for coming to this session.